trying to study to become a cult leader. There's a cult, or at least people call it a cult. I really don't know what specifically defines a cult aside from this definition. There is a very strange and very interesting cult called the Rod of Iron, and it is bizarre, and it is dangerous, and it is everything that I love about cults.
Our church community has been celebrating early October because my father was in a North Korean death camp in 1950, and he was freed on October 14th. So we kind of celebrate it as a Freedom Day because we see our father as a returning Jesus. This year, we did it more in terms of just generally celebrating freedom.
So the Rod of Iron Ministries is technically a religion, but many people have described it as a cult in the past. And I'm just going to be calling it a cult loosely because I don't do any research, and quite frankly, I don't care. I don't know. It looks like a cult. I'm not sure. The family of the Rod of Iron Ministries originates from Korea. It is now currently based in America, in which they have found the American dream. Now, when I said they were crazy, insane, dangerous, or bizarre, I really meant it. It's one of the most interesting religious groups I've ever come across in my life, and the leader looks like this. His name is Hyung-Jin Moon. Cool ass name. A lot of you guys know about separation of church and state and how important that has been through our, evolution as a country and civilization. And we've seen the shortcomings and times throughout history in which those two things were one and the same. The Rod of Iron Ministries seeks in tying a form of government, the Constitution, with the Word of God. I love the Constitution. I also don't know that much about God. So today we're going to be learning about the Rod of Iron Ministries, this incredibly interesting, bizarre, and disturbing group of individuals. We shall start with the leader, Hyung-Jin Moon, also known as Sean Moon.
When you have armed citizenry and they try to do evil, they get shot quickly. They get punished fast.
My name is Hyung-Jin Sean Moon, known as also Pastor Sean, or known as also Second King.
This man is the founder of the World Peace and Unification Sanctuary Church, known more popularly by its name, the Rod of Iron Ministries. Sean lived a normal life in which he was born in 1979 in the state of New York, where he would attend Harvard Extension University and go get a master's in theology and a bachelor's in liberal arts. And then it's not a normal life. Now he has a church. It's weird.
The Bible is very clear in showing that Christ requires us to be judges over the nation, judges of the wicked, to rule with the rod of iron.
In Sean's past, he also had a fascination with Buddhism. He would practice Tibetan Buddhism, and he would shortly live in a Roman Catholic monastery. He would literally be a moth priest, all right, to try and read the Elder Scrolls. In April of 2008, Sean was appointed by Sun Myung Moon, his father.
My father is the Reverend Sun Myung Moon, who believes is the Lord of the Second Advent, and he has created a kingship line, of which I am his appointed heir and successor.
To be the international president of the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. The long word, big wordy title. I don't like it very much. But the dude became the leader in 2008. Another little interesting Sean factoid is that he visited North Korea in 2011 to express his sadness for the passing of Kim Jong-il. That seems interesting. That seems weird. This is where it starts to get weird. He also donated $1.7 million to the Japanese Red Cross as a result of the earthquake and tsunami that year. So he's an all right guy, maybe. So the FFAPU, the church that Sean Moon was the international president of, he eventually left and created a breakaway church, his current church, because his current beliefs didn't match or follow the teaching as the same church before. This fellow was not happy with the previous church, so he just started a new one, an offset church. The World Peace and Unification Sanctuary. This happened in 2013, better known as the Rod of Iron Ministry. Now, why did his previous church change so much to where he would want to create his own new one? Well, Sean claimed that his mother had abused the church and changed his father's teachings to elevate herself in the church, which led to him and his wife leaving. So weird familial stuff. Very strange. Sean also likes to wear a bullet crown, as I'm sure you've seen. That's pretty cool. They call him the king, and they talk about his crown. This is a great phrase.
Sovereignty requires power. to defend.
Sovereignty requires power to defend. AKA, they're going to defend themselves if anyone comes knocking, is what I am getting from that message. Sovereignty. Now, what is different about the Rod of Iron Ministries from most church? A lot of peaceful churches out there. There's a lot of peaceful religion. Sean and the Rod of Iron Ministries want to spread the gospel in a slightly different way than usual. The followers need to be fighters and avengers for the gospel instead of just laying down and waiting to die to go to the heaven of God. You've got to stand up. As Aaron Tippin once said, you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. In my opinion, Sean is just a man who may or may not want to avoid paying taxes by buying AR-15s. Also, I am not sure if this is true. I'd assume they'd have more guns. Seems like they actually want to inform the masses and cherish themselves in their own little group of strangeness. Up until recently, they weren't really allowed on many mainstream social media apps. They're on Rumble, and they use Rumble to share their message with the world. They even do a little bit of rapping, guys. Nothing better than religious raps.
Satan to see and watch children do unthinkable things. Damn. All the while Satan is luring you and making you into a beast. Facts. And the feds with the elites are laughing cause our children they feed. Gonna fry like bacon if you come after them children. Gonna fry like bacon, normalizing minor attraction.
That was very bad. Very bad. The music's not good. That's good. That's a solid tune. They got no what? What, dude? He's fucking spitting lyrics or what?
They get the idea that they can become God and change their gender, which it can't. They can never do it. Doing none of that stuff. Chemical castration, chopping off your genitals, your breasts, chopping off all these things and trying to mutilate them to become something else. Oh my God. Action. That power of actualizing in our life and training and becoming higher level as we go, and then also training with our kids and making them higher level too, and create a strong family, spiritual, tactical unit.
Strong family. Finish your sentence. That part really bad about the Rod of Iron Ministries. I'm all for the gun stuff. I love guns, but that's bad, very stupid, and the rambling. Shut up, dude. Don't sound like a cult leader, at least. Try not to. Now let's move on to the actual Rod of Iron Ministries themselves. What do they believe in? What do they love? My voice just cracked. Sean's offshoot of his father's church started in 2013, like I said, and it happened shortly after the passing of his father and the nonsense happened with mommy. The main differences between the Rod of Iron Ministries and the previous church are political views, views on women, and views on social issues. The political views are fairly obvious, as you can probably imagine. The Rod of Iron Ministries is a far-right political entity. The previous church was politically centrist, as most churches are, it seems.
And how do you feel when you're wearing your crowns?
I guess I feel really good now. At the beginning, I felt a little self-conscious, you know.
The Rod of Iron Ministries has been very vocal in its support of former President Donald Trump.
I need water. Help me. I need water. Help.
And the leader of the Rod of Iron Ministries was involved in the January 6th, 2021 insurrection, that makes sense. And on the other hand, the Unification Church has never endorsed any political party or any candidate or anything. Now, to views on women. The Rod of Iron Ministries has a more traditional view of gender roles than the Unification Church. In fact, the website for the Rod of Iron Ministries says that women are to submit to their husbands as to the Lord. And the original Unification Church does not believe that men are better than women and that women should submit to them. It teaches that men and women are equal in the eyes of God. Now to views on social issues. As you can imagine, Rod of Iron Ministries, a little more conservative, a little more traditional. In fact, homosexuality is a sin. I'm not accusing anything, Sean, but that crown looks a little gay. And yet again, on the other hand, the Unification Church teaches that all people are loved by God, regardless of their sexual orientation, which makes more sense. And guys, just to top it all off, a little cherry on top, the Rod of Iron Ministries is currently focused on preparing for the second coming of Christ. So is the Unification Church, but the Rod of Iron Ministries is a little more focused on it. The church preaches the importance of God, but also ties in current events and reinforces the need to be safe and protect yourself with your iron rod, aka a weapon of some kind. Let me grab a weapon just so you guys can see I'm here in solidarity. Don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me. This is my personal protection weapon. 17 plus 1 suppressed. Pfft. I don't want my ears to ring.
Seems like I'd fit right in at this old church, dude. I walked in the door. Hello, I got guns.
The tying in of current events into the preaching of religion that the Rod of Iron Ministries does is not very traditional. They preach a message on the dangers of the modern era and talk about how the Bible had warned us that things that are happening would be the things that are going to happen, which sort of, I guess, makes sense. If you can pretty much apply meaning to anything and interpret things the way that you want, especially when those things are thousands of years old. I guess that makes sense as to how someone could do that. Now, one big question you might ask, and one big question I would ask, is why do they all wear crowns? Well, that's because it's a kingship line.
Not the case where the king said, okay, go out and make me a bullet crown. You know, it was made by a brother, Yosuke Tashiro, who was inspired to do this. It was the Tashiro's offering to the king.
People who are married through the church or are already married wear crowns, and people who are not yet married do not wear crowns. So I wouldn't get a crown because I'm not a married man. I'm thinking about getting married so I can have a crown though, because crowns are cool. Where things get interesting in the church is a lot of the headlines and news about the church, a lot of the media associated with them is very negative, and they're, seen as extremists. And generally in that same vein, the media calls people who are extremists, who are surrounded by like constitutional things, guns, involved in insurrections, they also call them supremacists, generally because they are white people. But there is a lot of culture within this church that is not just white people culture.
But yet, the left says, you're the dangerous ones, you're the Nazis, you're the white supremacists, and the half of you, or 90% of you are not white. They say, I'm white supremacist. You see, have you seen my complexion?
There are a lot of cultures in the group, so they're not supremacists. Are they extremists? Yeah, for sure. At the end of the day, the Rod of Iron Ministries is preparing the kingdom of God for when Jesus returns. Now, on to my favorite section. The Rod of Iron Ministries is very weapon-based and gun-pilled, it seems like. They really, truly appreciate firearms, particularly the AR-15. They get their name from Psalm 2:9, a verse in the Bible. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces, like pottery. Very biblical. Psalms. Love it. As you can imagine, the Rod of Iron Ministries interprets the statement of the Rod of Iron from Psalms 2:9 as an AR-15. That doesn't really make much sense to me because AR-15s were invented in the 60s by Eugene Stoner, not by Jesus. Now, this is a pretty major split between the Rod of Iron and the Unification Church, the original one. They didn't really care all that much for guns, while the Rod of Iron Ministries, they are a gun rights advocacy group, and they bring their firearms to church services, which is, that's interesting.
I convey the message from the second king about the Lord of Iron, but their reaction is, you're so wicked and you're in a cult.
The Unification Church, in fact, doesn't really have any official stance on gun ownership, except for one statement in which we'll talk about later. The ministry tries their best to educate and inform followers about firearms. They offer handgun, rifle training courses on their church website, which in my opinion, that's pretty cool. I feel like their, education quells a lot of issues, especially when it's done properly. When you tie it in with, religion, maybe it doesn't, but I don't know though. I don't know anything about this. I just like cults, and I know they always end well. People in this religion are obviously taught to respect firearms. Every single image I see, they all have great trigger discipline. Their fingers are straight. That's cool. I like that. That's good. No NDs, no one getting shot, nothing like that, or at least no record of it. It's honestly the safest church in the whole world, in my opinion. Probably. I doubt anyone is going to go in there or do anything. I feel like it's not possible. And the king of all of it, Sean, has a golden AR-15. Dude is dripping, man. Dude is dripping. On top of just bringing guns to church and pulpit. Is that what they call it? I forget, dude. Every event that the Rod of Iron Ministries holds encourages people to bring their firearms. They renew their wedding vows with guns. In fact, many of the guns were even blessed. That's beautiful. And this results in a lot of media coverage.
년을 4년으로 745일 고문. 그러나 저희들은 오직
If you don't have a gun, you can please clap.
감사문이 솟아오를 뿐이옵니다.
다음은 신랑 신부를 대표하는 감가정.
Dude, I want a crown, bro. As it often happens whenever there's a local cult in the area or a church, whatever you want to call it, in reality, you can call it. Local communities feel threatened. For good reason, too. Especially when one has power. From people who feel sad or scared about armed churchgoers during wedding vows or renewal ceremonies. A lot of protests. They're very scared of it. What is the Rod of Iron Ministries' response to this? Well, they make it public that there will be guns at their events. So that sort of makes sense. They also cite the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, which that also makes sense. And they want to defend their families, not make war. You know. Okay, that seems valid. Weapon-pilled, Mandalorian-based. Needless to say, there are quite a few people who are upset by it. There's also a lot of people who are just comfortable with it, as some locals sign up for the firearms certification and courses and classes that they offer, and they just want to teach everyone. The Rod of Iron Ministries wants to teach everyone about God, firearm ownership, and responsibility. Or so they say. I really don't know. Let's move on to controversies. The juiciest stuff. The first very large example of media coverage was 4 years ago. Vice made a documentary on the Rod of Iron Ministries, and you know, a lot of stuff was revealed then.
My name is Hyungjin Sean Moon, known as also Pastor Sean, or known as also Second King. My father is the Reverend Sun Myung Moon, who I believe is the Lord of the Second Advent, and he has created a kingship line, of which I am his appointed heir and successor.
The fact that the leader Sean calls himself the second king and the heir to the kingship that his father created. The man even tried to rejoin the old church and lead it, but was denied his right of leadership by the Supreme Court. You know, after all the stuff with his mommy happened. He petitioned in 2021 to claim the church for himself, saying that his father appointed him as the next leader, but his mommy ruined it. But that, you know, Supreme Court. So my boy Sean got denied by the Supreme Court, and then the original church, sort of rubbed salt in his wounds by stating this. We at the Family Federation USA pray every day for Sean Moon and his followers that they will soon put their guns down and beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Isaiah 2:4. As such, we will continue in our peaceful efforts to bring reconciliation and unity within all efforts of society as envisioned by Dr. Hak Jahan Moon and the late Reverend Dr. Sun Myung Moon. That's Sean's dad there at the end. Sort of rubbing salt in the wound. Pretty unfortunate. I mentioned earlier that Sean was there for the January 6th insurrection, riot, coup d'etat, whatever you want to call it. Not really a coup, but definitely maybe a riot. I'm not sure. He never faced any charges for it, but he was there. To further his obvious right-wing nature, he endorsed the notion in the 2020 election that it had been stolen from former President Donald J. Trump, which, you know, I could have predicted that. And maybe coincidentally, in 2021, Sean bought a compound 40 miles away from Waco, Tejas, where you may know about the other church that was there, guys. Little dust up with federal agents. The group is also criticized for being a militant group, which you can probably imagine. I mean, look at this headline. Militant gun church just bought a 40-acre compound in Texas. What could possibly go wrong? I don't know, dude. I don't know. Maybe we should look at history or something. I don't know, maybe. You could even potentially cite the courses that they offer on their website as, you know, a proof of espousing militant ideology. They want to train people to become militarized, even though it really isn't that, but it's something you could say if you wanted to. Well, I don't know if it isn't really that, to be fair. It doesn't seem like that. It seems to me like they encourage people to take full advantage of the Second Amendment and become responsible gun owners. I mean, I've never seen people actually use the little plug that goes in the barrel to stop. Like I've never seen levels of safety like that. The final controversy that this religion has been involved in is the accusation of being a cult. Now, I've said they're a cult a lot of times. The Rod of Iron Ministries has been accused of being a cult by many people and even former members of the group, which that's always a red flag. These accusations have led to concerns about the group's influence and the potential to harm its members and others. Not saying that's gonna happen, but when you look at them through the eye of a cult, it's easy to draw comparisons to other armed cults like Rajneeshpuram or the Branch Davidians. A lot of comparisons with that one there. And when you frame the Rod of Iron Ministries next to Rajneeshpuram or the Branch Davidians, one of them dismantled in a more peaceful way, the other dismantled in a very violent way, it's understandable as to why people might see this and immediately judge based on the associated company. It makes a lot of sense to me. All right. So what do you guys think about the Rod of Iron Ministries? Do you think it is truly an extremist group? Do you think it will end poorly? Personally, I believe it will end poorly. I think our government doesn't like this kind of thing, and it will quickly get out of hand. Three-letter agencies especially don't like this kind of thing. Too much sovereignty, bad. Too much sovereignty, bad in this great nation. All right. But when we start a cult, it will end well.